I think we've spent the last two episodes asking difficult questions. Why do so many men struggle in silence? And what myths have stopped us recognizing depression? So, today, for this final episode, I wanted to finish with something else. I wanted to finish with hope. Because if all we leave with are statistics, then we've kind of missed the point. I've missed the point. And mental health isn't just about understanding the suffering, it's about understanding recovery. Now, the biggest lesson I've learned, if you'd have asked me years ago what recovery from depression looked like, I think I'd have probably imagined someone just being happy and smiling and laughing all the time, returning to normal, whatever normal is. And now, I'm not entirely certain recovery works like that. I think recovery often begins much more quietly. Getting out of bed, answering the phone to someone, going for a walk, maybe saying yes to meeting a friend for a drink or a chat or a coffee, whatever it might be. Recovery isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's almost invisible, actually, until one day you kind of realize you're beginning to recognize yourself again. Now, unfortunately, there is no single answer. It would be lovely if there was. But there is something I feel very strongly about. Whenever mental health is discussed publicly, generally, I guess on social media mostly, people often want one solution, or they'll give one solution. Just exercise, go and talk to someone. Why don't you just try and think positively? Why don't you just take medication? Life is really that simple. Mental health is complicated because we as people are complicated. And the things that help one person may not help another person. And that is frustrating. But it's also kind of liberating because it means there isn't one right way to get better. I want to be honest, as I always try to in these episodes, and especially with this one. There was a time when I really didn't understand antidepressants. Like many people, I carried assumptions. I worried that taking medication somehow meant weakness or failure, or that you were kind of just ignoring the issue. It's not that I didn't think they didn't work. I just didn't understand the context of it. Now, you could do entire episodes just on the pros and cons and the controversy and the positive aspects of antidepressants. Scientologists hate antidepressants, psychotherapy, psychology. They think it is the root of all evil. They even have a museum in Scientology about how evil psychiatry is. And historically, there have been some terrible things done. People were lobotomized. People had holes drilled in their head. All sorts of terrible things were done. Before there was more understanding, that's not just exclusive to the Western world. You could probably find examples of medicine being far more brutal than it is now in most cultures, and in history, certainly. There was a fascinating interview on trigonometry with a lady whose name I can't remember, so forgive me. But she was talking about how she didn't believe that mental health affected brain chemistry. And it was a fascinating conversation, and Konstantin Chrisin and etc. were they were having a really good debate with her, and she raised some really interesting points that did make you think. Now, of course, she's done research. There is a wealth of research over decades that says the opposite. So it's early days to say whether she's correct or not. I know people who live locally. There was one particular gentleman who believed that he could cure mental illness and mental health issues just with the power of sitting in a conference room with him and talking. And my retort back to him was, well, if it's that easy, why don't you just hop on down to Rosebery Park and just cure all the people with schizophrenia then, if it's just about a matter of positive thinking? Or, you know, come and cure my wife's bipolar if it's just a matter of her sitting down and talking to you. People do believe those things. They believe there's a very easy answer. I had a GP who told Kelly she just needed to go for a walk when she was suffering from postpartum depression. That was all it was, just go for a walk. Exercise does help. I go to the gym, and when I'm in the gym, I feel wonderful, even if my head is in a terrible place. But I can't spend all day in the gym, you know, physically, practically, or otherwise. You can't spend all day exercising, but exercising does play a massive part. Diet plays a massive part. Loads of things play a massive part in your mental health. I personally benefited from medication. And outside of a few other factors, people, namely, I believe it saved my life. I honestly believe it saved my life. It made me feel better. It makes me feel better. And as far as I'm concerned, it can have its detractors and people can not believe in medication and people can believe in medication. If it works for you and makes you feel better, this can count for a lot of medication. It doesn't have to be just antidepressants. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. If antidepressants save lives and stop people feeling so low and sad and worthless, then I'm all for it. And I will constantly say that. But I appreciate they're not for everyone either. And that's absolutely appropriate as well. I just didn't appreciate the nuance and complexities of taking medication because I didn't take it at the time. But taking antidepressants doesn't mean failure. And like I've said, if it works for you, that's all that matters. And taking medication doesn't mean that people should just be able to cope without it. I don't believe that anymore. And it doesn't stand true for an individual who finds benefit in it because eventually you find yourself standing on the other side of the conversation sometimes. And I personally realize something. Sometimes your brain just needs help, not because you're weak, because your brain's unwell. It's poorly, it's suffering. And for me, taking antidepressants wasn't about becoming somebody different or giving in. It was about wanting to find myself again. After decades and decades, they didn't change my personality. They didn't remove difficult days. They don't make life perfect. But what they did do was reduce the noise in my head, the constant mental exhaustion, the anger, the heaviness, my brain feeling like a lump of clay. They gave me enough space to begin doing the work that actually helped me recover. That won't be everyone's experience, of course it won't. Some people try antidepressants and find they don't help. Of course, some people experience really negative side effects. Some need a different medication. Some people don't need medication at all. That's all okay. But we should always be careful not to let the loudest voices define everyone's experience, because for many people, including me, they save lives. Now, following on from that, it's probably important to note why are antidepressants so controversial? And I think part of the reason is because they're misunderstood. People perhaps imagine they just create happiness. They don't. They don't inject joy into any part of your life, and they're not designed to. But for many people, they simply make it possible to experience life again, to be willing to engage with therapy, to accept you need help, to reconnect with family and friends, to make decisions, to sleep, to think, to function. They are not the destination, but what they are is perhaps a bridge to that destination. And sometimes a bridge is all anyone needs to get to the other side. Now, over the years, we've learnt that recovery often comes from lots of little small things working together collectively: medication, therapy, a good night's sleep, a purpose, a good mental mindset. Exercise can help, a good diet, good friendships, good family relationships, a routine, nature, meaning, finding meaning in things. None of them are magic bullets. But if you put all of them together, or some of them together, they begin pulling people back towards themselves. And perhaps the most powerful medication of all is connection, something we've lost in this world because of exactly the thing that I'm doing this video on. Knowing somebody sees you, believes in you, and listens without trying to fix you is one of the most wonderful things of all. Now, I actually think we're in the middle of a bit of a quiet revolution, if I'm honest. Men are beginning to speak. Not all, not everywhere, but more than did before. Organizations like Andy's Man Club, Calm, Movember, there's a big one, the Samaritans. There's thousands of local support groups, and people are opening conversations that previous generations would have never believed would take place. And that should give us all enormous hope. Now, what I hope subsequent generations can inherit from us, well, maybe what if I could change one thing, it wouldn't be making boys tougher. It would perhaps be giving boys a bigger emotional vocabulary, teaching them that courage isn't the absence of fear. The doctor said that. It's being afraid and doing something anyway. Teaching them that strength and vulnerability have never been enemies. They don't need to be. And teaching them that kindness, including kindness towards yourself, isn't weakness. That's maturity. Now, at the beginning of this series, I said I thought I understood depression. I didn't, not really. Life taught me differently. Experiences taught me differently. People taught me differently. And my own experiences taught me so differently. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson I've learned, that mental health isn't something that happens to other people. It's just part of being human. Some of us will struggle. Some of us will cope better. Some of us will support somebody who struggles. Most of us might do both. And if I have been lucky enough for you to watch all 3 episodes, thank you very much. If you've recognized yourself somewhere in these conversations, I want you to know this: you are not broken. You are absolutely not failing at anything. And you are not alone. And if today is difficult, please do not judge your whole life by today's chapter, because sometimes the strongest thing any of us can do is simply let someone know we're carrying more than we can manage on our own. I'd like to finish the trilogy with something simple. No music or anything like that, just this. The opposite of strength isn't vulnerability. The opposite of strength is believing you have to carry everything alone.